The shooting range. In this episode, pages of history, night sky chaos, triathlon, ocean kings galore, and metal beasts. What the hell is this? The La Royale update went live more than a month ago, but the parade of new vehicles is still on. Today's metal beast is weirdo. It's called the M4 T26. Upon closer inspection, one might have all sorts of questions for the Sherman and Pershing tanks. The mildest one would be, what happened to the second halves? Well, let's take a closer look at this Pershing? Its main caliber is a 90mm gun with elevation angles between -10 and +20 degrees. It's enhanced with two machine guns, a 7.62mm and a 12.7mm. The engine compartment is in the rear, while the transmission is in the front of the hull. The crew includes 5, seated in a classic layout of 3+2. The ammo racks are spread around the combat compartment. At first glance, giving the Sherman a 90mm cannon sounds like a great idea. Bigger caliber means more penetration and explosive power, right? Well, it's not as straightforward in practice. The old 76mm cannon was already doing pretty well at hitting vulnerable areas. Of course, it had a worse after-penetration effect and delivered far fewer one-hitters. However, it had a good enough reload rate to finish off enemies that survived the first hit. The Sherman could actually fight 2 opponents at once with it, taking turns at shooting them both. It also had a single-plane stabilizer to aid in aiming. It's an amazing advantage for a medium tank in close combat. So, are we implying the new gun is worse? No, not really. The 90mm cannon performs much better at long range. That's why we suggest you consider the M4 T26 an SPG, not a medium tank. Kinda like the M36, but with better armor. And the armor is actually better. Of course, we're not talking about the hull. Even early Shermans couldn't handle hull hits well. We're talking about the Pershing turret. It performs great unless you expose the left cheek, hiding the first-level ammo stowage. With a well-protected turret and great elevation angles, this is an amazing tank for playing in sheltered positions. With this tactic, you can enjoy the full potential of the vehicle and compensate for some of its flaws. Leave short-range combat to the classic Sherman and Pershing tanks. They'll do a better job. We're still wondering, though, what happened to the second halves? What's the best way to describe a commander of a Royal Air Force night fighter serving in the spring of 1941? There are some options, but we think the best one would be an expert in chaos. Even daytime Air Forces had a lot of it, while at night, it became as real as the monster under your bed. According to Beaufighter pilots, their night sorties were like boxers fighting blindfolded with their coaches shouting, "Block! Turn and hit!" If you were lucky to spot a German bomber in the dark skies, you had to lock onto it with your weak and primitive radar that only worked under certain engine modes, vibration levels, temps, humidity, and God knows what else. Got a target? Confirmed contact? Shoot! Well, assuming your 4 British Hispanos are willing to fire tonight. Back in the spring of '41, their reliability left much to be desired. Guy Gibson, the future commander of the Dam Busters, was one of those chaos experts flying a Beaufighter at night. And boy did he see some weird stuff. A random wimpy flying wherever and you can't tell if it's an ally or a trophy one run by the enemy? Yeah, that happened. 2 groups of Beaufighters taking each other for German bombers in the night skies? Unfortunately. The chaos had a life of its own and was multiplying, but experience was accumulating too. and the Luftwaffe suffered more and more losses in the dark English skies. That April night in 1941, Gibson and his operator, Sergeant James, had reason to be proud. They followed a lead perfectly, catching up with and destroying a twin-engined plane, which promptly sank in the English Channel. They couldn't really tell whose plane it was, though, but they did knock it down. Wasn't that a reason to be proud? Oh, here's another coming up. The ground pointed to another target. A German bomber, right ahead. And the clouds are clearing up. Here it is, a German plane. Don't even need a radar. Gibson approached it and got ready to spray it with bullets. But then something truly unexpected happened. The German plane caught on fire, broke apart mid-air, and fell down. The crew managed to abandon it and use the parachutes. The observing pilot, utterly perplexed, reported this to the command. When their Beaufighter returned to the airfield, the entire base was buzzing. The German pilots had already been captured and interrogated, and their story only added to the confusion. They said their bomber had first been shot at by some twin-engined aircraft that only had weapons in the fuselage. Okay, that might have been some other Beaufighter with no MGs in the wings. There were too many of them in the skies to count. But the first attack reportedly did little damage to the Junkers 88, so the Germans went on with their mission. Almost 20 minutes later, they felt a strong hit to the wing that apparently took out the entire right engine, together with the console. Their only remaining option was to jump. Time did little to clear up that situation. One of Gibson's fellow pilots claimed it was his Beaufighter that shot down the German plane. Gibson himself probably decided against arguing and agreed. That version became the official one. But you could say it wasn't very convincing. Gibson saw no tracer rounds that should have been there if a Beaufighter had actually been firing. There was no AA fire either. The ground simply couldn't spot a plane at night. A bird, maybe? Well, only if ostriches could fly. It wiped out an engine. Maybe it was a German night fighter who mistook this bomber for a Beaufighter. No, that doesn't make much sense either. German pilots would use tracer rounds too. Or would they? After all these years, we still have no idea what actually happened that night. After many requests in the comments, today's triathlon is featuring all top battleships. They've gained some might since the last one, and we've got more nations with a navy now, so it's going to be exciting. Please welcome the USS Arizona, the SMS Bayern, the Soviet Parizhskaya Kommuna, the HMS Marlborough, the Japanese Fuso, the Italian Duilio, and the French Lorraine. Maximum speed is not what you'd call a forte for our contenders, but we still think it makes sense to compare their dynamics and maneuverability. The first test will have our teams reach a small isle, turn around it, and get back. The vessels line up at the start line and go! Of course, we usually say the teams dash forward, but that would be a wild overestimation in this case. The battleships pick up some speed, deliberately. After a couple hundred meters, both the Duilio and the Fuso gain the lead and start turning around the isle. After them, we can see the Lorraine, the Parizhskaya Kommuna, the Bayern, and the Arizona almost hugging each other, while the British cowboy is guarding the rear. After a bit of synced drifting, the battleships set their course back. The Italian crew finishes first, then we see the Japanese one, and the rest come a bit later. Third place is shared by the Bayern and the Marlborough, and next come the Lorraine, the Arizona, and the Parizhskaya Kommuna. Now let's check out the survivability of our contestants. We'll take the winner of the last triathlon, the Japanese Hyuga, place it 10 kilometers away, and have it shoot AP shells with its main caliber. Now, the poorest results are shown by the French, Italian, and British battleships. Their main armor belts aren't too thick, and the ammo rooms don't have additional protection, so the shells detonate pretty often. The Parizhskaya Kommuna fares a little better. It has a large crew, and its fuel tanks stop the shells before they can detonate the ammo. The SMS Bayern earns third place in this trial. Its barbettes with 350mm thick steel and additional armor belts offer reliable protection against enemy shells, while coal bunkers help to stop the spalling. The American battleship shows a similar result. Its sides, turrets, and decks are covered with strong armor, while the ammo is hidden behind the fuel storage. But the best result here is shown by the Japanese Fuso. Thanks to its record size, the internal compartments are far away from each other, and the armor thickness reaches 300mm. The number of crew members also plays a role in survivability, and Fuso has the largest one today, with 1,900 sailors. And now for the main trial of this triathlon, a firepower test. We are going to have our teams shoot at the German Kaiser battleship from the same distance, 10 kilometers. Lorraine and Comuna draw the first match and spend quite a while on sinking the target. The French ship needs a higher firing rate and maybe more guns, while the Soviet one could use a bigger caliber. The HMS Marlborough and the Duilio handled their targets a bit faster. They can send 10 armor-piercing shells at it every 30 seconds. The USS Arizona takes third place in this test. It has 12 guns and one of the best AP shells in the game. If it also had a faster reload, it could have been the best here. Instead, the German battleship earns second place, thanks to its caliber and firing rate. Its 380mm semi-AP shells can deliver critical damage with each hit. Still, it could use a few more guns here, because the best firepower today belongs to the Japanese Fuso. With 12 guns and World War II-era shells, it can handle pretty much any target. Great job on this one. Let's sum up. The bronze goes to the USS Arizona for its great armor and decent firepower. The silver goes to the SMS Bayern for its large caliber and thick armor. And the winner is the Japanese ship once again. The Fuso delivered an excellent performance across all tests and won the title of the new Ocean King in War Thunder. And now, while the crews are admiring the winner's tower, we'll answer some of your questions from the comments. The first question was sent by a player called Richard Williams. What's the best tactic for using the SMK in arcade battles? Hi, Richard. The SMK's armor isn't as good as, say, the KV-1's, mostly due to its vulnerable turrets. But it still makes sense to angle your hull to hide the frontal armor. In all other respects, it's a typical heavy tank with great firepower. Pick a central attack line and push enemy defenses. If you don't want to fall prey to more agile vehicles, get a couple of allies for company. Your favorite Pere asks, if a plane with two pilots has the main one taken out, would the co-pilot be able to take over? Or vice versa? Hi there, our favorite Pere. Yes, War Thunder has this feature on those planes that had double controls in real life. Another question comes from Don Vincent Pileo. Why does the BF-109 G14 have a heart on the side? Hello! It's just a squadron emblem. You can find those on many German planes of World War II. Army Man 239 writes, which is the better tank, the Tiger 2H or the Panther F? Hi, Army Man. Those tanks are so different it wouldn't be fair to do a direct comparison. We'd say this choice is a matter of preference. The Panther is pretty fast and offers some protection, while the Tiger has amazing armor and great firepower, but low speed. And the last comment for today was written by Nightmare31. Is it possible to play the new map Naval and Tanks together? This map, it seems, is made for this. Hi there, Nightmare. Many ground maps in War Thunder have seashores, but we can hardly imagine how ships and tanks could play together. What would it look like? An enormous ship fires at a tank and the tank just drives away laughing? Or a modern MBT with the best shells there are takes ages trying to knock out thousands of sailors on a ship? You know, it's probably better to stop at aircraft for the time being. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to land a tank on an aircraft carrier, leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.